Welcome to the Cauldron. We're serving up our thoughts about neurodivergent life, business ownership, and ADHD-friendly systems. Let's see what's bubbling today. Here we are, part 3 of our ADHD life cycle series. Part 1, we talked about our childhoods. Part 2, we talked about adulthood. And now it's part 3, and we're talking about parenting and our own children.
When did you start seeing signs in our kids?
The day she was born.
Why?
Just the constant crying, and the things had to be just so in order for her to not cry.
I think you're exaggerating a bit because day one was like, this is a baby.
Okay, true.
It wasn't day one, but I can say within the first year, we had thoughts. It was like, how do we get her checked out? What's the earliest we can get her checked out?
Yeah. So I think our first really big sign was the towel thing.
The baths.
We would put her in the bath. She would have a great time in the bath, and then we would go to get her out. And it was like the world was ending. That transition moment between being in the water and coming out of the water and then getting wrapped in the towel was a nightmare. It was a nightmare every time.
It's terrible for everybody.
And I don't know if it was like the sensory thing of just going from water to dry to the texture of the towel, if the towel texture was wrong or whatever, and then getting her into pajamas was like
Another fight.
It was rough.
And we kept on thinking like, man, what are we doing wrong?
Yeah, well, how can we change what we are doing in order to make this better?
I'm not trying to be like, I know what I'm doing, I'm a parent, but it's like, how many ways
And you get a kid out of the
can you towel
tub.
a child?
There's like 2 ways.
Please, parents, help us.
One of the ways is to just let them air dry, and that wasn't working either. That didn't work either. So yeah, that first year we started seeing the signs, and then I think she was 2 when I first took her to the child study team in the school district that we were living in, because apparently you can call the child study team at any age and have them evaluate your child.
Yeah, they don't have to be in the school there.
Right. They just have to be you have to be living in the district. So we had her evaluated. It wouldn't have been a diagnosis at that point. It would have been a recommendation for further evaluation.
Yep.
And it was like 2 hours long. Like I just sat sort of like to the side, and they played with her and, did all these little exercises and stuff. And the thing was that she was so advanced for her age.
So smart.
In so many ways.
Yeah.
That I think she kind of outsmarted their tests. She compensated so well in other ways. And nothing came of that.
Nope.
Because they didn't recommend her for further evaluation. And at that point we were like, okay, well, maybe she's just a little
quirky.
Like me. We were like, she's just like her mom. She's fine. She's just like her mom, who is also fine.
Yeah.
This was pre my diagnosis. So. And then she really did compensate really well. And she seemed fine for a while. And it wasn't until she was probably 6.
The first grade.
When we started wondering again. Her first grade teacher was incredible.
Yeah.
And I think really made a difference. And maybe we would have noticed it sooner if she hadn't been so hands-on.
So accommodating.
And so accommodating.
Yes.
She really did an amazing job.
Yeah.
And her second grade teacher was a nightmare.
Unfortunately. And that's where we really found, there's some problems here.
Something's not quite right, because she was so sensitive. And second grade is when we ended up getting the 504 for her. Yeah, the 504 thing is like a whole conversation.
We're seeing the youngest start to show these signs, and we start going, okay, like, are they both old enough now? It's 6 and 4, and the wait time to have him evaluated was like,
it was so long.
A year to 2 years.
And this was like shortly after COVID lockdown was over. And I think a lot of parents, having been in close quarters with their own children, with their own school-age children for that long, noticing things about their kids
that they weren't before.
They weren't noticing before, definitely made them go, oh, maybe we need to get some resources. Maybe we need to see if there's something going on here. So the wait lists for evaluation were just years long. And I had him on multiple wait lists. He still has not been properly evaluated for autism. However, we did get him evaluated for ADHD, which did turn out that he
Passed with flying colors.
passed that one. He got an A in having ADHD.
Yeah.
We need to give them pseudonyms. For the purposes of this episode, she is E and he is Z. Okay? Okay. So E got the diagnosis. They both got the diagnosis at the same time.
Yeah.
The ADHD diagnosis.
But that wasn't at him at 4.
No.
That was a couple years later after we switched him from
we had
a school district to another school district, trying to figure out how to best help him because the resources he had or that we had were not helping him develop
the skills
he needed to survive, to get through school.
Because he had such a rough kindergarten year.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand it because he had 2 teachers in the classroom. The class was super small. Mm-hmm. He was getting tons of one-on-one time and individual support. And
we'd hear great things from parents and from the kids.
He was everybody's best friend.
Yep.
And on his report card devastated me. I felt like I had the floor pulled out from under me.
Yeah, like it felt like totally, what is that? Hit from, I don't even know.
Blindsided?
That's the one.
I felt totally blindsided by it because it was just like, here are all the things that are wrong with your kid. He can't do this. He doesn't do this. He won't do this. He's bad at this.
Yeah, that hurt.
That's my beautiful baby.
Like, why didn't you say something?
Why am I just hearing about this now at the tail end of the year?
Yeah, like if we needed help or we needed to try to figure something out for him that wasn't working, we are involved.
We are involved. And the kicker for me was that at the beginning of the year, I had contacted the child study team and said, I think that he might be neurodivergent. I would like to have him observed in the classroom. And I would like to hear your recommendations for if we need further assessment.
And he's on a wait list, just so you know, but in the meantime, can we do this?
Because if we go this way, then he can kind of get accelerated access to the wait list. So they did the observations and they said, we don't recommend further evaluation.
He's great.
He's great. And that was in like October of that school year. And then in June, it was like, hey, your kid sucks.
That's how it felt. And when I say he's great, I meant like they said, he's like every other kid. Just got to let him grow. He's going to feel things out. This is exactly where they're supposed to be.
But then that was not the messaging that we received at the end of the year. So he was in kindergarten the same year that E was in 2nd grade. So they were both having a really rough year at the same time.
Really hard.
So then over that summer, we decided, hey, we need to do something differently. Mm-hmm. And we decided to homeschool for their 3rd and 1st grade year. And it started out okay. I did a ton of research over the summer, got the curriculum I wanted, kind of figured out what I wanted the rhythm to be. And when we started, things with E went fine. And with Z, it was like we just clashed. Like our personalities did not work well together in that way. We did great with like field trips and outings and stuff like that. But when it came to
schoolwork,
actually doing the schoolwork, it was like I didn't know how to say it in a way that got through to him, and he didn't want to hear it from me. We started the school year beginning of September. We realized by the middle of October that it wasn't going to work, that he wasn't going to learn anything from me, and that he was going to be way behind the next year. But I didn't want to put him back in the same school that he had been in.
Didn't feel good.
Because I had a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
From that whole situation. And at the same time, they were in the process of restructuring the school district. So there was just chaos in the school district. My mom teaches at a private school nearby, and we were able to get him in. Their 1st grade class had one opening. She pulled some strings for us, basically, and got us a seat. And it was a perfect match. That teacher was perfect for him. She has 2 neurodivergent kids of her own and knew exactly how to handle him. And she just pulled the best out of him. Mm-hmm. And I will forever appreciate her for that. That experience showed me that he could thrive in a classroom if he was given the right tools.
Yeah. and support. Yeah.
He did have a couple of incidents that year, but they were really, it was impulsiveness. There was never any malice. And that was something that the head of school made sure to tell me.
Yeah. It was more information
about how his brain works.
Yes, for that. Yeah.
Because he could not control his impulses. And that was when I got really serious about getting him tested for ADHD.
Yep.
So meanwhile, we got through half of the school year with E during homeschooling. And then over Christmas break, she said, I'm ready to go back. I want to try again.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And I re-enrolled her. And I think the teacher was a good fit.
Yeah.
And
it was still a breath of fresh air from second grade.
Definitely.
It was what she needed to get back into it.
Than second grade.
Yeah.
That was so bad. They both finished out that year pretty well.
To wrap up kind of what we're talking about here, it sounds silly if you see something, say something, but we had this feeling and had this thought for so long. We knew based on your family, based on my family, based on our feelings around the whole thing that hey, we really think and we want our kids to be set up for success. And it's so important that you fight for them. And we're not helicopter parents by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
But it is so important that our kids, our future, their future, that they know that we actually care for them and that the people who they're spending the most of their day with care for them and see them for who they are and the things that they need. So please pay attention to that. And if you feel it in your heart, you feel it in your gut, reach out, see what your options are and go based off that.
Yeah. And I think it's obviously very different, school to school, district to district, state to state. It's
what your resources are. Yeah.
So different for everyone. And I wish that weren't the case. I wish that everybody had access. We're still waiting for autism evaluations for both of them.
Yep.
And we have been waiting for our youngest. We've been waiting for years at this point. And for our older, we've been waiting for months. However, she is on an accelerated wait list now due to some other situations. They've got her on an accelerated wait list. But I know a little bit about, because I have most of an education degree and because I worked in schools, I know a bit about accommodations and about the different plans that kids can get when they have a disability. So IEPs are for academic accommodations. And 504s, you can think of them as more physical or situational accommodations. So in an IEP, for example, you might have different standards for that kid might have to meet different standards than the other kids in the classroom. In a 504, that kid might be given accommodations, but has to meet the same standards as the rest of the class. So our older kid has a 504 and she has various accommodations as part of that 504. And every year we meet with the principal, the guidance counselor, and her teacher to look at the terms of the 504, see if it still makes sense what we have in the 504, and add things or take things out as we need to. Actually, that's coming up for this year. And we have had to send some emails when teachers have not been following the 504. I hate being that parent. I hate having to do that because I know how hard teachers work. I know how difficult their jobs are.
Yes.
I respect and admire them so much.
Because your parents are teachers.
Yes.
My mom's a teacher.
I
get it.
I worked in schools. Yes.
We don't want to do that, and that's not why we're reaching out.
I do not want to make your life more difficult. This is something that my child needs and something that my child is entitled to according to the law, and I need you to follow it.
And if it's a problem, we need to figure out a solution.
Yeah.
So help us help you or help the school help you so that we can meet those needs, because we didn't have this figured out or written up for kicks.
Right.
It is for her
it's there for
thrive.
a reason.
Yeah.
So that's been unpleasant. And the thing is this takes so much time and energy, and it would take so much time and energy if I were neurotypical,
Yeah.
advocating for my neurodivergent kids. As a neurodivergent person, I'm like, okay, I have to remember that these meetings happen. I have to remember
It's extra steps.
it's so
Yeah.
much. It like I have to be really organized about where I keep the paperwork for all of these things. I have to be in communication with their doctors, their therapists, their psychiatrists. I have to be on top of like making sure that the school and the teachers are following through on the terms of the 504, which means I have to check in with our kid and be like, hey, how are things
How's this been?
going?
Yeah.
And it's a whole other
Totally worth it.
totally
Still
worth
hard.
it. And the other part of this is that I wish I had this.
Oh, yeah.
And seeing it happen for them, seeing them get at least something is huge.
Yeah. And recognize that that's available to them, or should be. Yeah.
As hard as it is.
Yeah.
And as long of a process as it's been, as drawn out as it's been, it's still so much better than going your whole life not knowing.
Just
raw dogging life.
ADHD and autism all the way through.
Okay, so that's like the history. Now, getting into like, how do we instill in our children the strategies and the tools and the skills that they need in order to survive in the world or thrive in the world as a neurodivergent person? This is so much harder because I don't even do it well myself. How dare I try to teach it to someone else?
While we're in the middle of figuring it out. I think that's the thing is like, if I go based off of what I'm trying to do and what I see you do, I don't want to speak for you, but our parenting comes so much from a place of, yeah, I'm trying to figure this out too, man.
Yeah.
And like, that wasn't cool, but we need to figure out what we can do differently. Something that works for everybody, because that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And we can't do that. That's not our base. We need to figure out where our base is, where everybody feels good about it, and go from there. And that it's so hard.
It's really hard. And I'm still like, today we had an incident and I still am like trying to process everything that happened today and understand what it means about how neurodivergence is manifesting in my child and reconcile it with, okay, we have a preteen in the house. And not only do we have neurodivergence raging among all of us, we have hormones raging. There's part of me that's like, how much of it is this and how much of it is the other thing? And how do I parent this situation? I try to be really careful about the language that I use. I try to name the things that I didn't have a name for when I was a kid.
Speaking the things into words helps so much. But what I also see is it's really hard for them to understand what that's attributed to or what that's attached to. And that's for both of them, is like, I am talking about this thing and this is what we're calling it. And their feeling about it is like adjacent to that. And so I'm trying to think of like a specific, but there's so many times where I've been like, we don't do that because, for example, like this is something similar, but hey, dude, when I'm telling you to stop, it's in a respectful way to start and need you to hear me because it's, driving people batty and not everybody can handle the sound effects that you're putting out there. And so he's like, okay, like, got it. I just got to stop. And then he explained to me that sometimes when you tell me to stop, I don't know what you're asking me to stop for. And it's like, okay, got it. So it's like I'm on one train and the kid could be on a totally different train about like what we're talking about. And it's not until minutes into the conversation where it's like, okay, we gotta like come back together and make sure we're on the same page. And that's just ADHD talking to ADHD.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, is that all of our flavors of neurodivergence are so different. I guess like when we realized that our kids were neurodivergent, I kind of expected them to manifest in similar ways as us. And they haven't.
No.
They haven't. And so it's like 4 completely different brains operating at various levels at various times.
This is for everybody, whether your child is neurodivergent or not. Your kid has their own personality.
Oh my God. That is the thing. That's the thing that gets me about people who aren't parents or who aren't parents yet, who try to give advice as though a child is completely moldable, like a puppet.
Why haven't you done this? Or
why haven't you tried this?
Yeah.
Girl, I've tried it. Oh, have I ever tried it. And I've tried every version of it. Every variable of it has been tweaked and changed and tried again. I promise you I have tried it. As it turns out, children are people.
And it's not like we went into the grocery store planning on having a meltdown because
it sounded fun.
Because it sounded fun, right? Every kid has their own personality. Like, they just are. They're their own person.
And they have their own thresholds for what they can handle. And the threshold sometimes changes day to day.
Yeah.
And just for all of the non-parents out there, I just beg a little bit of grace. And for all of the parents of children who are like neurotypical or who are compliant or whatever, like, it's not necessarily your parenting that did that. It's as much about the personality of the kid as it is about your parenting.
There's other variables. So a little tangent there, but I thought that was really important to put out there.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I think that the thing that it always comes back to, and where I see my hiccups as dad come to the most, is losing patience.
It is so hard. It's so hard to be patient because I do feel like I am a very patient person, and they bring me right to the edge anyway.
Whether that's what they're doing or where your head is at because of how the day was.
Right.
The amount of spoons you have left over from all the things you already had to do. There's all these other, again, so many variables that are happening all at the same time. It could be one thing that was said.
Well, or like the minute I am encountering something new with my child. So the minute they're exhibiting a new behavior that I don't know how to approach.
What is this?
Like today. And I immediately went to like, something's wrong. Like, are you okay? Did something happen? What is going on in your brain right now? And then would not tell me what was going on in their brain. And I haven't encountered that yet because we are approaching this new age, this new stage. And so I haven't encountered this like flat out refusal. And so I encountered something new today as a parent, and I have been a parent for almost 11 years, and I'm still encountering brand new things.
I feel like that's going to be forever. It doesn't compute that way.
It doesn't compute.
No.
Because you think that at some point you will have encountered all the behaviors, or at least all of the behavior patterns, and you will have a response to the pattern. No. Because as it turns out, they are people.
What?
When I'm responding to behavior like that, when I'm responding to things that I'm not happy about as a mom, like I'm also in my head thinking about how I would want to be responded to as the child.
So how you were parented versus what you're doing for your kids.
Yes.
Now. Yes.
Because I am trying to do things differently.
Yeah.
Because I do not want my children to grow up with the same patterns of shame and
guilt
and self-worth problems.
Fear, maybe.
Absolutely, the fears,
yeah.
The baggage
Sure.
that we had from our childhoods.
And look, they did what they knew and however they could to survive.
And they would tell you
parenting.
that themselves.
Yeah.
They would tell you that themselves.
And I'm proud of them for doing it.
Yes.
And I appreciate them.
And
we can move on from that.
Being a parent now has given me so much perspective on my own parents.
Mm-hmm.
And how they handled things when I was a kid. However,
I don't want to do it that way.
I don't want to do it the same way.
Yeah.
So I'm working really hard to keep them both from internalizing shame. And I'm also finding that like some of that wasn't something that my parents put on me, which is a whole other new perspective. Because one thing that I have done completely differently from my parents is I don't give a shit about grades. I do not care about grades. When they bring their report cards home, I set them aside and I don't even really look at them. And
then in the conversation at the end of the school year when we're talking to the teachers, it's, are they being good human beings?
Was she kind?
Yep.
Did she listen?
That's been the focus every year for us. So,
and as they get older, sure, we will care a little bit more about their academic performance just because we want to set them up for success. But like in elementary school, I feel like grades are so secondary to the other really important stuff that they're learning.
Right.
So I have never put a value on a grade, ever. And just tonight, I was putting E to bed, and she said, I have a science test tomorrow. And I said, okay, how do you feel about that? And she was like, well, I'm really nervous. And I was like, why are you nervous? She was like, I'm not very good at science, and what if I get a B? And I was like, excuse me? A B is a great grade. A B is great. She was like, yeah, but it's not an A. And I was like, so? And she was like, well, yeah, and a B is too close to a C. And I was like, a C is a great grade. Like, what are you talking about? So I know that I have never put that on her myself, and I know that you haven't.
No.
But she's got it from somewhere, and she feels that pressure.
That weight. Yeah.
And so I think not only do I need to not put it on them myself, but I need to undo whatever someone else has done.
Explain the thought process instead of just putting it aside, explaining what's
right. And so I walked through all the grades, and I was like, listen, an A is great. A B is great. A C is really good. A C means that you are hitting what you're supposed to be hitting. A D means you have a couple of things you need to work on. And an F means you have a few more things you need to work on. None of them say anything about you as a person. And as long as you try, if you try and you get an F, great. You tried. If you try and you get a D, I'm so proud of you for trying. And we will work on it, and we will make sure that you're learning what you need to learn. Some people don't test well. So even if they do understand the material, testing is really hard for them. And so they might get a D or an F on the test, even if they do know. So it's not a measure of your worth as a person. And that messaging is so different from what I got as a kid. But I'm still now afraid that she's going to internalize that she has to get all A's somehow. And I'm going to be like, I did everything. I did everything I could.
And we're still here.
Cruel fates.
So I just again, it continuously goes back to the patience thing. And because there's so many times where we've had this conversation. We talked about this. And
yeah, why are you worried about this?
I've told you it's not a problem for me.
I don't care.
What are we doing with it? Why you're way up here. And I've been down here this whole time, and you keep getting higher. What are we doing with this?
Yeah, why are we doing this?
And I notice in myself that then I start to lose patience because it's okay, this is apparently not working, and now I need to do something different. But the only different thing I have is to be more stern. You want me?
Yeah, what will you respond to here?
And that is the most difficult thing. And I think something I'm still trying to learn is that stepping away for a moment or holding them for a moment with no words is necessary to be able to get to the next step, because reasoning, there is none.
Right.
In so many cases of these.
And especially if you think about what ages they're at right now, I feel like they go through this weird, you can't reason with them when they're toddlers. And then they hit 5 and you can start to reason with them. You can reason with them for a few years. And then they hit 10. You can't reason with them anymore. And maybe they'll come back around and we can reason with them again later. But yeah, it's a cycle. And I definitely, I feel you on the patience thing. I really wanted to be a parent that had more patience than my parents had. But I have learned that it is not just something that is innate. It's something that you have to work at, and you have to train it. And it also is so dependent on your circumstances. I know now that my parents were stressed for the vast majority of my childhood.
Absolutely. And you don't see it when you're in it.
No.
As a child.
No.
It's
the amount of
not even thinking.
Financial stress and pressure that my parents were under for the entire time that I lived at home, from birth to age 18. The financial pressure and stress that my parents were under would have cracked another person. Would have absolutely cracked them like an egg.
Yeah.
And they were parenting 3 kids in the midst of it.
That's achievement unlocked.
And it gives a little perspective on their patience level.
Sure.
Because I know when I'm stressed, I struggle to be patient with a kid who is having in my mind, completely unwarranted meltdown.
Yeah.
It's a struggle for me to be like, okay, but to them it's warranted. To them it makes sense.
Yes.
And here
And
is
their steps.
like,
We're here for a reason.
yes, now we have to move through this in this way.
Yeah. But the patience is not a bottomless well.
It is not a bottomless well. And I think I thought that by doing yoga and meditating in my early 20s, I could unlock a bottomless well of patience.
Wow.
I did not. It did not happen.
More hot yoga, I think.
Yeah, probably. You're probably right. Okay, so I think a lot of what we've talked about tonight is actually not just about parenting neurodivergent children. I think it's just about parenting in general.
Yeah. Okay.
So specifically when it comes to ADHD, what do we want them to know about themselves as neurodivergent people that we didn't know when we were growing up about ourselves?
That they're not less than. That it's okay to think of themselves as weird, and that other people are going to say those mean things because bullies are bullies and people are people or whatever. But like, they are just another human going through and struggling through growing up and figuring out who they are, just like everybody else. And that there are these certain things that are going to make things even more difficult because that's just how they're wired, but there's nothing wrong with that. And that it's okay to be in that space and ask for help. All those things I would have loved to have known.
I think that for me, rejection sensitivity was such a huge part of me as a person. I want my kids to know the things that you think make you weird or strange or wrong are so normal. Just things that I thought as a kid were weird and embarrassing about myself. Some stuff that almost every kid goes through regardless of their brain. I thought that stuff made me really weird and I was embarrassed by it. And I would hide those things and not talk to anybody about, like not even my mom. I wouldn't talk to anybody about them because I thought that it made me weird and bad. And I see that happening with especially our oldest. And I see those thought patterns. And so now I'm really careful to bring those things up and say, hey, I noticed you said this about yourself. Is it because of this? As I want you to know that that's normal. And it's not weird and it's not bad for you to think about. It's not weird and it's not bad for you to even talk about. And nobody's going to stop being your friend just because you have thought this way. Nobody's going to reject you for this, especially not me. Because I think that would have been really important to hear as a kid, but because I never told anybody that those were the things that I was thinking about that were going through my mind. Like nobody knew to reassure me about them. So I'm trying to like protect her privacy also without saying anything too specific, but it's hard. And I also just hope that like the benefit of early therapy, the benefit of early medication, I'm really hoping that makes a big difference for both of them.
Yeah.
I know it's not the be all end all, but it's something.
To help create some sort of foundation that they can work with and see beyond the noise that's happening all the time right there.
Yeah. And to know that they have a team that's not just us.
Yes.
That it's okay to get help from XYZ person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
And we're very lucky, again, super lucky to have family nearby that care and want to be involved and respect our wishes and how we'd like to do some of these things, as different as they are when they were raising us. So I'm appreciative of that.
Yeah,
it's
me
been
too.
a big change for them, and we're very lucky there.
We are very lucky in a lot of ways to have family nearby, to have supportive family nearby who are all of those things that you said, but also that we have access to a psychiatrist for the kids, that we have access to a therapist for the kids. We're very lucky for that.
What do you hope is different for them?
I just hope that what I hope is different for them from what it was for me is that they don't feel stuck or trapped in the ways that I did.
It's hard for me to separate what is just growing up and what is like ADHD specifically.
Yeah. Well, some of it is also, I think, that rigid thinking, that all or nothing thinking that comes with neurodivergence. Because for me, I just had in my head, I always was going to go to college and I was always going to, my life was going to go this, then this. you know? And I want them to go into it with more like, let's see what happens, you know?
Be open.
I want them to go into their lives with openness and curiosity and not like, I have to do this so that I can do this so that I can do this.
We're trying to remove that pressure.
Yeah.
And allow for, you said curiosity. I think that's perfect. Yeah.
Like, we already know that our kid number 2 is going to be a husband and a father because he's already cried about his wife multiple times. I was just telling that story today about him crying at bedtime, and I said, hey buddy, what's wrong? Why are you crying? And he was like, I don't know the number to the hospital. I don't know the phone number to the hospital. And I was like, what? I was like, why do you need to know the phone number to the hospital? He was like, well, when my wife is having a baby, she's not going to be able to call. I was like, okay, so you have lots of time to learn the phone number to the hospital. So we can look that up and we can learn that. We don't have to do it tonight. And also, you don't have a wife. And then another time he was again crying at bedtime. I was like, buddy, what's the matter? And he said, our house is so small. And I was like, well, I think it's the perfect size for our family. And he was like, yeah, but when I get married, where's my wife going to sleep? He has been thinking about his wife since he was like 4 years old.
Yeah, it's been pretty
consistent.
Yeah.
So.
My goodness.
He's a family man. He's ready. He's going to be a great dad.
Yeah.
Okay, well, as per usual, we have no neat and tidy way to wrap up this episode because our children are 8 and almost 11.
Ooh.
We have a birthday very soon in our household.
Yeah.
And we are obviously still in it. We are still learning. It is very messy.
Every day is something new. And I mean, I think you hit it. That's like, it's not that you actively think you've seen everything and now you're ready for everything, but
you're just surprised.
Yeah, I think you just go into it knowing you don't know everything and be open to learning everything and try to gain as much patience and fall back on the people who are on your team. I think those are the biggest things you could do. It's not the end all be all for everybody, of course, because there's so many variables, but those are like, find your team. I hope that everybody is able to find that partner or that team that they can fall back on and ask for help. That's just, it's so much.
Being able to tag someone else in is really important.
Yeah. And then listen to your gut.
Yeah.
They're your family. And I know we talked about it with, with the kids scope in particular, but your partner, if you're like, I don't know, if it comes to that, like you have that conversation around, do you have the tools necessary, or do you feel like you have the support you need to thrive, or where are we at, so it's,
and I mean, for what it's worth, like, yeah, we had a gut feeling about our kids when they were 2. My mom had a gut feeling about me when I was 34,
right?
And she said something, and it made a huge difference. It made all the difference to me that she came and said something and said, hey, I think you might be autistic and I think you should look into it. As a parent, if you have a gut feeling about your kid, listen to it.
Yeah.
Regardless of how old they are.
Yeah, regardless of age. Yeah, that's great. Was this episode 10?
This was episode 10. We are double digits. This has been episode 10 of The Cauldron.
The big old 10.
The big 10. Join us next time. Follow us on Instagram. Drop a comment. Send us an email. Send it to Zoom.
Drop a like. Do a rating.
Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, which is the only place where you can rate us right now.
Is that right?
Yep. Do your thing, and we'll hear you next week.
Bye.
The people are waiting for you to say, yeah, you will.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, try it again.
We'll hear you next week.
Yeah, you will.